The word guilt today, you know, is not very popular. One isn't supposed to use it because nobody today is guilty. We're just sick. You have guilt only in an age where there's reason. Did you know that? As long as people think, they believe in conscience, and because they believe in conscience, they will have a sense of guilt. But now, reason is not very popular. If you put your head between your hands to think out something, people ask if you have a headache. And even all of the fruits of our 2,000 years of Christianity today are being bypassed. There's almost a contempt today for philosophy and theology. And why? Well, simply because it's reasonable.
Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we learn from Venerable Fulton Sheen, one of the greatest Catholic teachers in modern times. Join me, Amy Thomas, once a week for a short reading out of Bishop Sheen's book, Way to Inner Peace. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, and welcome to week 38. So we are leaving the learning section and we're moving into the wisdom section. And this is going to be one of the longer sections that we read through. But today's topic is called Stick Out Your Tongue. And you may be wondering, what in the world is that going to be about? Well, it's all about our voice, the words that we use, how we speak to each other. And, you know, I don't think I have to explain this, but words have a lot of power. They can really hurt somebody and cut them to the quick, or they can just bring somebody out of the depths of despair and help them to rise out of that and really give them hope and encouragement and make them feel loved. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And our 3 key points are voice, encouragement, and praise. Number 38, stick out your tongue. Ours is the most talkative age in history, not only because we can multiply words 1,000,000-fold through radio, television, recordings, and print, but also because there are few who like to be listeners. Even youth is called upon to give its views before it has had time to learn principles. If you just put your head between your hands today to think out something, you are asked if you have a headache. What we say is a revelation of the heart. Scripture says, "From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." Matthew 12:34. Modern psychology has just begun to discover that what is in the heart sooner or later makes its report on the tongue. Socrates well said, "Speak that I may see thee." When a doctor would ascertain the condition of the health of his patient, he says, "Stick out your tongue." As on that member is registered to a great extent the physical state, so also is registered there the moral condition. If there is a skunk in the cellar, it will not be long until it makes itself known in every room in the house. If jealousy, hate, evil, and resentment are in the heart, it will not be long until they find utterance on the tongue. Science tells us that the vibrations of speech are recorded through the centuries. Some have even spoken of the possibility of picking up in the universe the great voices of the past, even that of the Word himself. The spoken word is like the spent arrow. It cannot be recalled in its flight, but its responsibilities endure forever. Alpine climbers bid travelers at certain points not to shout too loudly, lest the vibrations of the voice precipitate a terrible avalanche. The hasty or intemperate word, or the whispered slander, has often provoked great crises in history which have drowned thousands in their misery. It is interesting how through history Law has recognized the dangers of the unbridled tongue. In China, excessive talkativeness on the part of a woman was regarded as sufficient grounds for putting her away. Manu, the legislator of the Hindus, wrote, "Whatever glances are reserved for the slayer of a priest or the murderer of a woman or child are reserved for those who give false evidence." Augustus Caesar ordered that the authors of all libels were to be punished by death. The art of speech has been studied with great competency from Aristotle onward, but few there are who regard the morals of speech. If a moral person sat down to decide the one secular profession he or she would approach with the greatest reluctance because of the responsibility it involved, that profession would be the publishing of a newspaper. An unskilled doctor could kill the body, but the person who would use the printed word either to kill a soul or deprive it of a single grain of divine truth or put into a single germ of evil would be guilty of the greater crime. As Christ is the Word incarnate, so every spoken word is the thought incarnate. As Hawthorne said, nothing is more unaccountable than the spell that often lurks in the spoken word. A kind word gives encouragement to the despondent heart, and a cruel word makes others sob their way to the grave. There are not sufficient apostles of encouragement in the world today. The great tragedy is that so many people are unloved in the right sort of way. Instead of trying to find out what is worst in people, everyone would be happier if there were a search for even just one good point. Street cleaners were one day discussing a companion who had died and who indeed had few good points. But one stood up for him, scraped the bottom of the barrel for something good to say about him, and came up with the phrase, "But whatever you say about him, he did sweep well around the corners." There is good in everything if we but distill it out. So to begin today, I want to go to the very beginning, where Bishop Sheen says, "Ours is the most talkative age in history, not only because we can multiply words 1,000,000-fold through radio, television, recordings, and print, but also because there are few who like to be listeners." And, he didn't know what was coming down the pipeline with the internet and, social media and all those things. But we definitely have an issue with people wanting to multiply their voices. And I know the irony of me saying this as I'm making a podcast, and every single day I get on social media and I write about the Catholic faith. And so, yeah, I do want my voice to be heard. I hope that I'm bringing people valuable things, but it is an excess today. Everybody wants their voice to be heard. Everybody wants to be seen as an influencer. For the most part, I understand there are obviously people that are introverted and could care less about having their voice heard and, getting on TikTok or any of the social media platforms and spewing words all over the place. But for a lot of people, they do think that, they're going to get famous, they will make their mark on history if they can just get their voice out there. But it does cause us to not be good listeners. We are not good listeners because we're all trying to talk over each other. We're all trying to be number one. We all have something that we want to say and we want everybody to listen, but at the same time, we don't afford that to other people. Something interesting happened a couple months back. Because I'm from Kansas, whenever people meet me and they find out that I am originally from Kansas, I inevitably get some kind of Kansas joke, a Wizard of Oz reference or something along those lines. And people tend to have this view of Kansas, if they've never been there before, that it's still like Little House on the Prairie time frame there. Like we're still riding around in covered wagons and turning butter on the front porch and things like that. And I get this a lot. I do. And so a couple of months ago, I made kind of a funny video for social media, where I was talking about how people have asked me, are there cars and roads in Kansas? And so I kind of made this sarcastic video where I'm talking about, well, no, there are no roads in Kansas, and we still ride around in our covered wagons, and just kind of making fun of the fact that people still stereotype Kansas in that way. It was all done in fun, and if you really know me, then you know that that can be my sense of humor. So anyway, people laughed about it. It was funny, especially people from Kansas. They all totally got it. Several weeks after I made that video, I get on Instagram and I can see that I have a very long response to this video. And I was like, whoa, dang, somebody has something to say. And as I'm reading it, this older woman, is going on and on and on about how this is a terrible video to put up. I'm not showcasing Kansas well. And she starts telling me all about how great Kansas is and how I'm misrepresenting it. And she's talking about the flora and the fauna in Kansas and the state flower and how wonderful the flag is. And she's not even from there. And just really going on a long, long lecture. I mean, there were a lot of words there. And I'm reading it and I'm like, wow, this lady did not get my sarcasm at all. And so I just calmly wrote back to her and I was like, this was just all done in fun. I love my home state, and, these are just some of the funny things people say. And so I was just making a joke. I thought that would be the end of it. No, she came back for more and just continued to ridicule me about how I need to make videos that are factual and accurate. And again, she went on this long tirade of telling me all this information about Kansas, which I kind of already knew, and how I must never have really been there or appreciated Kansas like she appreciates Kansas. I mean, the time and effort that was put into her schooling me on Kansas was incredible. And I was like, okay, she still didn't get that this was just meant to be funny. I was just being funny. And so I said, you just need to kind of calm down a little bit. You don't have to take this seriously. I thought that maybe would get through to her. And no, then she came back with full force and calling me names and talking about her degrees and how intellectual she is and all this stuff. And so then by that point, I was like, okay, well, you're not listening to me. I hear what you're saying. You want factual videos on Kansas. She even told me I need to make actual factual videos on Kansas, not these stereotypical spoofs. And I was like, she's just not going to listen to me. She's not getting it. I was just trying to have a bit of fun. She doesn't know me, so she doesn't know my personality and my sense of humor. And so I just chose to leave it alone. But my goodness, she had found a platform and she was just going to educate me. And it actually made her look a bit ridiculous because everybody else could see that I was just joking around and having some fun with it. And she took it so seriously and was unwilling to listen to me that her diatribes, 3 of them, very long, on Instagram, that's not fun to do. Just, you could tell that she was perhaps jealous in some way, resentful about something. I don't know, but something was going on there, and she was using her words to try to put me in my place. And, I think if anybody were looking at that from the outside, they could see, wow, she went a little over the top, needs to take it down just a notch. But we tend to do this a lot. We tend to want to be the loudest voice or want to be the one with the most knowledge It didn't matter how many times I said to her, I'm from Kansas. I lived there for 22 years, 23 years, if you count when I went home while my husband was deployed. I go back there every single year. That's where I'm from. I know what you're talking about. That didn't matter. She was going to teach me. It was just evidence that just sometimes we just need to back off, walk away, let people, have their say. We don't always have to school people. We don't always have to use our words to show that we're right or that we're more smart. But yeah, it was just very excessive. And the more I talked to her and tried to reason with her, the uglier she became. And that's what Bishop Sheen says here on 135. He says, modern psychology has just begun to discover that what is in the heart sooner or later makes its report on the tongue. And you could see her trying to bridle her tongue initially, and then by the end, it just all came out. Exactly how she felt about me just all came out, and it was ugly and it was mean. And so I just knew it was time to let this one die. So now I want to move on to page 136. Bishop Sheen says, the spoken word is like the spent arrow. It cannot be recalled in its flight, but its responsibilities endure forever. This is something that we truly have to remember. What we say to people really does have lasting effects. And once we've unleashed that arrow and let it fly, we cannot get it back. We can't take it back. It will always be there on that person's heart and on their soul. And they won't be able to forget any hurtful words that you've said, but they also won't be able to forget really positive things that you've said. And that's what we should be focused on. So in my teenage years, I had 2 very bad boyfriends, and I've discussed them. The first one was abusive in many different ways, but the way he loved to cut me down was through words. And he would always make a point to point out girls that were prettier than me and let me know that they were prettier than me. He always made a point to ask why I couldn't be like such and such a girl that, perhaps we passed in the mall, or the cheerleaders that were at the football game or whatever. He always made a point to point them out to me and then turn to me and ask, why can't you be like them? And in an effort to please him, I tried out for cheerleading. I was always an athlete. I loved playing sports, but I wanted to find a way to please him. And I thought, he's always got his eyes on cheerleaders. Maybe if I become a cheerleader, maybe that will make him love me or make him proud of me. I don't know. But I went out for cheerleading my junior year, and I made the varsity team. And the day that I found out that I made it, I was coming out of the high school, and he happened to just be driving by. And I, flagged him down, and I ran over to him, and I was so excited to tell him. And I said, I made it. I made varsity cheerleader. And he looked at me and he just said, you'll never be any good, and drove off. And there is still a part of me today that believes that. And I know it's not true, but it was such a wound. I mean, the second he let that arrow fly, it crushed me. It just crushed me. I lost so much self-esteem that day. And it took a long, long time to recover from that piercing that arrow caused, and the many arrows that he let fly. They caused a lot of pain in my life, and I doubted my lovability. I doubted my ability to be good at anything. You just can't express how much words can wound. And after all this time, you would think, oh gosh, that was a long, long time ago. Get over it. He was just a jerk. And I know all that, intellectually, I know all that. But it still stings. And sometimes the ghost of those words creeps into my mind, and I do doubt myself, and those feelings of having low self-esteem and not feeling worthy or not feeling lovable still creep into my mind. And so that's why we have to be so careful about what we say to people, because it just stays around for such a long time. Thankfully, God has blessed my life with an amazing husband who is everything that past boyfriend couldn't be or would never be. And even from when we were dating, he always has showered me with compliments and kind words, encouragement. He's always believed in me. He's always told me that I'm beautiful. And, even when I ask him, what happens when I, don't have my youthful beauty anymore, and I'm just an old lady with gray hair and wrinkles and everything, he's like, I'll still think you're beautiful. I'll still think you're beautiful. And a part of me has a hard time accepting that and really hearing that, but I trust his words. And so it does lift my spirits. It does make me feel good. And the thing is that, the wounds of the past did for a long time cause me to doubt when my husband would be encouraging and complimentary and all those things. It caused a lot of doubt. And sometimes I feel like I'm a bit needy in needing him to reassure me with his words because of the pain of the past. And so, I'll ask him, certain things to get reassurance from him and to hear him say things that do make me feel good and do make me feel loved and do make me feel lovable. And thankfully, again, he always offers them without me really having to ask for those kind words. It's amazing how God knows exactly what you need. And he gave me a wonderful man who healed a lot of wounds, which I'm very grateful for. So this is something that we have to think about, whether we're writing on social media, talking to family, talking to friends, talking to our children, talking to our spouse. Gosh, people get on our nerves, and sometimes we just want to lash out at them and just make them shut up or whatever. But we do need to think about our voice. Are we using it for encouragement and praise? Or are we using it to belittle and bring people down? And oftentimes what I've found in my life is the people who use their voice in a negative way to bring people down are people who do not feel good about themselves. And so they're trying to bring you down to their level. And so if we find that we're using our words to hurt others and to wound them in some way, we need to take a step back and say, what is going on with me? Why am I unhappy? Why am I so miserable? And what do I need to do to fix myself? Because I cannot be trying to make other people miserable. That's the most unchristian thing in the world to do. And so honestly, if you just start using your words to bring about encouragement and praise, or to give encouragement and praise to other people, and to see the smile on their face and to see them, kind of put their shoulders back and raise up a little bit and feel good about themselves, it's going to make you feel good about yourself. If you're feeling down, if you feel like you're struggling to use your words in a positive way. And so I would just encourage you to think about the relationships in your life. With spouses especially, I know a lot of spouses get to the point where there's bitterness and resentment and anger and frustration. And so what generally happens is all of those things show up through our voice. And the spouses end up belittling each other and calling each other names and cussing at each other and only seeing the bad. And Bishop Sheen talks about that. He says, instead of trying to find out what is worst in people, everyone would be happier if there were a search for even just one good point. And so if you're struggling with a coworker who's driving you crazy and you just like to use your words to put them in their place, or even somebody online, if you get into a back and forth with somebody online, try to see them as a human and try to find some way to either encourage them, agree with them if you can, find some common ground, as my brother always says, or just give one good point, just one good point. I can see that you really care because, I don't know, I just think that if we focus more on using our words for encouragement and praise, not only will we feel better, but the people that we're speaking with and communicating with will definitely feel better. So take some time to think through how you're treating your spouse, or how you're talking to your spouse, your kids, friends, parents, siblings. My goodness, siblings, yes, especially if you're adult siblings. And just take some stock. And if you can see that you're using your words and your voice in not a positive way, just remember how those arrows fly. And it'll be very, very hard to take it back. And so try to make arrows of encouragement and praise and kind words fly, because that will actually make your relationship better. You'll feel better. And it just makes everything better all the way around. So that is it for this week, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for week 39. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.